Evening and welcome to the Washington County Public School Systems Board meeting tonight. We welcome all of our guests this evening, and I am filling in for our president this evening as she is home recuperating from being sick. So bear with me tonight as I do this for the first time. So at this time, I call that we have a quorum, and we're going to go with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gracious Father, we are grateful for the opportunity to serve Washington County and its students. We ask for your guidance as we discuss the important matters before us. Grant us wisdom to make decisions that will positively impact the lives of our students, educators, and families. Bless us with the strength to face challenges with courage and the unity to work together toward common goals. We ask for your continued blessing upon our school district. Guide our hearts and minds as we strive to create an environment where every student can thrive and succeed.
Thank you. May be seated. Hello, Philip.
Hello.
How are you tonight?
Good.
Good. You look handsome this evening.
Thank you.
All right. So, Philip, I appreciate you being here this evening. I have a little cheat sheet here to tell me a little bit about you. So, I want you to fill in some blanks. So, where do you go to school?
Clearsburg Elementary,
And how long have you been going there? What grade are you in?
4th grade.
4th grade. Wonderful. And who do you have tonight with you?
My mom, my dad, sister, and principal Mr. Spogo.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending. So I hear there's some sports that you like to play. What is that kind of, what sports are you enjoying?
Baseball and soccer.
And what is your favorite?
Baseball.
Do you play like Little League here in the area? Or just around around the home?
I think
Minor league? Very good. Wonderful. And I understand you like to watch the sports on TV.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite baseball team?
The Baltimore Orioles.
The Baltimore Orioles. Excellent. And do you have a favorite football team?
The Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
The Cowboys. That's interesting. All right. So a little bit of a trivia here. It says you love going to the movies and can tell every kid movie coming out in 2025. Is that true?
Yeah.
Tell me one movie that's coming out.
Dogman on January 31st.
Wow. And you're a big Disney fan. How many times have you been to Disney World?
Twice.
Twice. And what's your favorite ride there?
Dinosaur.
Dinosaur. Mine's a runaway train. I love that train ride. So well, good.
I like that one as well.
You do? Awesome. Awesome. What else do you want to tell us about you tonight, Philip? Anything else? What's your favorite class in school?
Math.
Math. All right. We got some people that really are enjoying that you're a math student. So, board members, does anybody else have any questions for Philip tonight?
I do.
All right.
So I have children about your age. Can you hear me? Okay. So I have children about your age. What do you think would be the best movie for me to take them to go see?
This year?
Yeah, this year.
I think either Dogman or I think Dogman.
Okay. Thank you for the suggestion.
Welcome.
Board members, anybody else? Thank you, Philip. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you for having me, Phil.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mom and Dad, also. We appreciate you bringing Philip this evening. All right. We're going to move on to our approval for the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Approval of this evening's agenda.
Second.
Any discussions? I see no discussions. We'll go ahead and take the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's 6, and 1 student concur. All right, the approval of the minutes.
Mr. Gaspard, I move for the approval of joint meeting of the Board and Delegation minutes dated November 20th, 2024.
A second.
Any questions, discussions? All right, I'll take the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
And I have the student, did you vote?
No, I wasn't present at this meeting.
All right, I have 6-0. The next,
Mr. Gaspard, I move for the approval of closed session open portion minutes dated December 4th, 2024.
motion on the floor to accept?
Second.
Mrs. Beachley, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 6-0.
Mr. Gaspard, I ask for the approval of closed session minutes dated December 4th, 2024.
Motion?
A second.
I mean, a second. Ashley, thank you very much.
Yep.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
6-0.
Mr. Gaspard, I ask for the approval of business meeting minutes dated December 4th, 2024.
I got a second. Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0.
Mr. Gaspard, I ask for the approval of closed session open portion minutes dated December 17th, 2024.
Second. Sorry.
I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0.
Mr. Gaspard, I ask for the approval of closed session minutes dated December 17th, 2024.
Second.
I have a second on the floor. Any discussion? Vote. 6-0.
And finally, Mr. Gaspard, I ask for the approval of business meeting minutes dated December 17th, 2024.
Second.
I have a second. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Any discussion? Vote. 6-0. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Ms. Murray, I'm sorry. Thank you, and we're going to move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspard.
You're welcome.
I'd like to begin my report this evening with state recognition, with a state recognition for a group of distinguished performing artists. I've asked this time for Micah Sox, our supervisor of visual and performing arts, to come forward so that he can introduce our special guest. Mr. Sox?
Thank you, Dr. Savine, President, my members of the board. Tonight, we are proud to celebrate the North Hagerstown High School Tri-M chapter and recognize their success as Maryland's State Chapter of the Year. The Tri-M Honor Society is the International Music Honor Society for high school students. It is designed to recognize students for their academic and musical achievements, reward them for their accomplishments and service activities, and to inspire other students to excel at music and leadership. Nationally, there are more than 9,700 chartered chapters and approximately 80,000 student members. Just to note, several of the students we're recognizing tonight are attending an all-county orchestra rehearsal, and several more will be headed there shortly. But at this time, we'd like to recognize those students, starting with Michaela Akamine, Dana Begzod, Shay Bigsby, Braden Caffarelli, Myrae Demore, Evan Dar, Nina Defty, Annika English, Gabrielle Gachalian, William Hu, Rachel Liu, Lauren Lee, Umu Makalu, Brielle Miller, Kimberly Miller, Emily Maraku Babu, Zachary Nolan, Ashlyn O'Connor, Jennifer Ram, Kiera Robinson, Gabrielle Sanders, Betsy Vo, Daphne Wang, Ruby Zhao, Shraddha Bista, and a big thank you to their advisor, Dr. Janine Sturm. Let's have a big round of applause for these outstanding students.
I was going to wear my dark corduroy tonight.
At this time, we will start with our public comment. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. And our first speaker this evening is Christina Parkman. Christina, if you don't mind signing the paper up there, put your name, that'll be fine. Thank you. You go right ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello, Washington County School Board. How are you? I'm in a better mood this time. Okay. But I do have to address a couple of things. It is, sorry. I have been to the board meetings and felt, to the previous board meetings and felt as if my voice wasn't heard. I'm here tonight to address a couple different issues I have. Rule number 1, nobody is going to mess with my kids and me not put up a fight. Dr. Gladhill, to be specific. Doctor, or should I say Jeffrey Gladhill, as the doctor doesn't mean shit to me. My son was placed in the basement of Western Heights Middle School where Dr. Shithill placed my son on a regular basis in seclusion from the start of September to October 17th, where I had an IEP meeting and it was told from the IEP meeting team that my son was not to be in that room anymore. I visited this room where the room was small, no windows. On the wall was a pic that said ISS. I took a pic and Dr. Gladhill asked me to remove the pic. It was told that from Dr. Gladhill, I told Dr. Gladhill I was not going to remove it, and my son was tortured by Dr. Gladhill, which caused distress on my son. I was called and told my son had wrapped a string around his neck and said, "I don't want to be here." Dr. Shithill then had my son talk to a social worker who later called me and said she didn't think his intent was to harm himself. My son was in distress and only said that he didn't want to be here because of the distress that Dr. Gladhill was putting him through. It is the school's duty when my child enters the school to protect and get an education. The school and the school board has failed my son over and over and over again. My son was also given a threat assessment, but who's the threat here? A 12-year-old boy who is autistic and disabled, or the assholes who were educating him? I am also going to address an email I received after I filed a state complaint from Melissa Brunson stating she has been trying to help me since she first got wind of my situation. My answer to that is when I've been going through this with WCPS since 2021. I only heard from Melissa Brunson when I became an unpleasant situation at the school. The first time I heard from Melissa Brunson was 6/27/24. The email I got from Melissa Brunson January 2nd was an intentional letter to put in writing that she tried to reach out to me several times in the summer so she would have some sort of documentation to show MSDE that she reached out to the parent. If WCPS truly cared about my son, they would not have suspended him more than 10 times, and they would have worked with him and not secluded him in the basement of a school. I am also here today to address my other son who attends Tech High but plays sports for Clear Spring High. I want to address that my son has been a victim of my voice and retaliation against me speaking up for Prince. My son's coach did not play my son at all the first 2 games. I emailed the athletic director on December the 17th with my concerns. I had an IEP meeting on December the 19th and also told Melissa Brunson about that situation as well. My son had a game on December 19th, 2024 as well. My son played in that game that night, but only got 2 minutes of playing time. I also noticed my son only comes in the 4th quarter and is the last to leave the bench. This is not for my son not being able to play the game of basketball, as my son has always been a starter on any basketball team that he has ever played with. I believe this is retaliation for me filing multiple grievances about my other son who attends Western Heights Middle School. On so many different levels, this is retaliation and discrimination, and my son is the only African American on the team as well. So I am here tonight to address those issues. I do want to say that thank you to the board. I do believe that you guys, the new board, is the reason why my son is doing better. He's at a different school. He's doing better at Clear Spring Middle School. And they work with him when he has a problem. They don't be mean or anything like that. They work with the problem, they call me, they get it done, they get it worked with. So I appreciate that because I do believe that the new team maybe had something to do with that. So thank you for your time and thanks for listening to me, and I hope that things will change, as I will file a complaint about my son not playing basketball if that doesn't change. So thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mrs. Parkman. Our next guest speaker would be Carol Mallon.
Good evening, Vice President Mr. Gesford, Dr. Sovine, and members of the board. I am Carol Mowen, President of the Washington County Teachers Association. I'm here to share some comments with you tonight on behalf of our members. Many competing voices use rhetorical strategies to influence viewpoints about many issues. And one example is the rhetoric around Maryland's blueprint law. To discern the truth can sometimes be difficult. Since becoming state law in 2020, the blueprint seeks to, quote, transform public education in order to improve the quality for all students in Maryland, especially those who have been historically underserved. This includes students who receive support through special education, students in poverty, and students who are multilingual learners. And that is the thinking behind the 75% rule that Mr. Prue described during last week's budget work session. We are now several years into the 10-year implementation plan. The law has become integral to the work of our educators and students, and public discourse about the blueprint ramps up annually for the budget cycles in Maryland's legislative session. In mid-December, Governor Wes Moore delivered comments referencing Blueprint to the Maryland Association of Counties. According to ABC 7's report, Governor Moore said that, quote, "We will pause the elements that need a closer look or that require a laying of a stronger foundation for full implementation." Please note that Governor Moore did not say that the blueprint is going away or that the goal of the blueprint for full implementation would change. But depending on the intent of the news outlet or the individual providing a report of his comments, the rhetoric has relayed widely different views about the future of the blueprint law. The pause that the governor has proposed slows the timeline for the blueprint's collaborative time goal to provide teachers up to 40% of their working day out of the classroom to plan, grade, communicate with families, deliver and develop interventions, and collaborate. To achieve this goal, school districts will need to hire more staff, and with the current teacher shortage and funding challenges, this is going to be difficult. Collaborative time is not a separate blueprint line item, but is embedded in the foundation of the school funding formula. There are several different proposals about how this pause will impact the funding for fiscal year 26 and beyond, details to be worked out during the legislative session. Locally, our teachers are working daily to meet many blueprint mandates without adequate time in their workday. These include job-embedded training on a variety of topics, the use of new curriculum resources that are high-quality instructional materials, HQIM, as now defined by the Maryland State Department of Education, and additional small group instruction for students who are not on target in reading and math to meet state standards through a multi-tiered system of support, commonly called MTSS plans. Our teachers have additional planning work to do for these small groups of students and additional tracking of each student's progress toward identified objectives in a methodical and time-consuming manner that goes beyond the traditional classroom assignments and grading expectations before the blueprint. And this is without additional planning time needed to accomplish the work. Each month, our WCTA Representative Council meets to conduct association business and share common concerns. Reps have shared concern about workload and equity related to MTSS plans since last year. Depending on student load, grade level, and content, each teacher may or may not be impacted by MTSS, and expectations can vary school to school. Our WCTA elected board of directors has shared these concerns with Dr. Sovine and the leadership team in our quarterly meetings, and we are working to address the issue. But so far, we've not been able to find a good resolution. Whatever happens regarding blueprint funding and the pause to collaborative time implementation, teachers need more planning time in the school day to do the work. Teachers needed more time even before blueprint became law. We want our students to be successful, and we support the promises of the blueprint. Regardless of the pause to funding formulas and delay of the promised time, we need a local solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else that would like to speak tonight?
Good evening. My name is Ethan Loen. Weasel words is a term that is in the dictionary, and it means statements that are intentionally ambiguous or misleading. And it's oftentimes a term that is used by attorneys to describe kind of, the underhanded things that are done when facts start to fail them. And at last meeting's discussion, I believe weasel words were used in response to what I had said. You know, it spoke about what other people were speaking about, which was a child that is being transitioned through transgenderism. And what I had talked about was that this is something that has been going on for a while, that 2 years ago, actually 24 months ago, I actually had gone to a public meeting and made a statement that this is actually what is allowed and eventually will be happening because of the policies that the teachers union pushes. And there was a response that came between the superintendent and the one teachers union board member. And in it, what they said in response to that was that our structures work collaboratively with parents. That was the response to, can you do this? And then the board member said, well, administrators can call a child by a nickname. That's not the same as changing it on their records. And basically, those are weasel words. You know, collaboration and giving the child a nickname doesn't impact the child the same as changing their name on a form. It avoids answering the question by giving a definitive statement that, yes, we can do this to a child if we choose, or no, we cannot do this to a child. So when the board member just asked the question, can this be done, there should have been a definitive answer. Now, a reasonable person could say that what I'm saying is a stretch. It could have been a simple slip of the tongue, the way the superintendent and teachers union board member had that conversation. That's possible, and hopefully the teachers union board member and superintendent will repeat that brief interaction and correct the record by answering definitively. However, this is an ongoing lie that has been repeated over time. You know, when I had that meeting, said that at the meeting, there was a reporter there who reached out to the school board or reached out to the administration and said, so what is going on? And the response was, the emailed response to the reporter was that I was incorrect, to quote the reporter. You went on to explain to the reporter that according to policy JOB-R, updated January of 2022, administrator recommendations in a hearing is required to do what I described. Again, weasel words. You told that reporter I was incorrect, and then you explained the process by which you could do exactly that to children. And so you can see why I don't think the last meeting's interaction was a misunderstanding, but rather a shared belief that allowed them to so quickly and effortlessly present a series of weasel words. Furthermore, this history of lying extends into more areas than just you talking to our children about transgenderism and what you can do then to our children. You know, there was a school board member several months ago was asking about the lack of the number of people that number of children that were in the school where chronically violent children are supposed to go, and directly asked the superintendent a question about it, how many, and there was a lack of a response. That wasn't quite a weasel word, but it was a lack of a response. Again, that school board member came back. I spoke about it and said, no, I actually have been told by teachers that there's like none, that they're desperate to get the chronically violent children out of the schools for the safety of the other students and to put them where children have gone for decades and decades. That has helped them very much at the Antietam Academy. And the school board member came back, asked a question again and again, but no response. And then the school board member came back a third time, said, actually, teachers have reached out to me and said that no, it's not being used. And you know, the interaction that was had with that board member is they asked questions that put a spotlight on the effects of union policies are having on the behavior of children or lies of omission. You know, we're not only talking about a history of lying, but I fear there's a culture of lying. You know, reporters have been lied to, therefore the community's been lied to. Board members who oppose the union's policies have been lied to, therefore the community has been lied to. You know, conversations have been engaged with the teachers union board member. You know, that back and forth the two of you had, you know, that was lying to the community. And now, unless the two of you are going to re-engage in that conversation and correct any misunderstandings by answering with unmistakable honesty, and everyone wants you to do that, most of all, I want you to correct me on that point. Unfortunately, what makes it even worse is the teachers union's policies you are defending have been rejected by the voters in historic fashion this last election, not just in our county, but throughout the entire state. You are doing this in spite of parents having always rejected these policies, and now the teachers themselves are reaching out and speaking when lies are spoken because of their need to protect their students from the mental health issues these policies cause, as well as the violence caused by these policies. The suffering has to end, education and safety has to be restored, and it begins by replacing a culture of lies with a culture of honesty. And so I would hand the floor over over to you, Ms. Murray, to re-engage with that interaction. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Anybody else? Good evening, Mr. Porter.
How you doing, Mike?
I'm fine. Just to let you know, I'm going to allow you to have extra time tonight if you need to. So if you hear a buzzer go off, don't worry about it.
Because they have a pattern in practice of allowing people to speak longer than 5 minutes at last year's, and they would be defeated in court if I sued them for violating my First Amendment civil rights, viewpoint discrimination by treating me differently than they treated other people. It's called the 14th Amendment, Equal Protection Clause, U.S. Constitution, well, Bill of Rights.
I hear you.
Okay.
I hear what you just said, but that was last year.
No. The policy is to let people talk longer than 5 minutes if they need to, period. They haven't voted yet to change it. If they vote to change it, I'll abide by the new policy, but they haven't done that. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Porter. No discussion from the,
He
no
uses a litter
discussion.
box.
We can
not
have a
standing
side
box.
discussion later.
Later, yeah.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead, Sean.
Okay, so the first person I'm here to speak on behalf of is Derek Dyer. He wanted me to thank Dr. Sobine for calling him and apologizing for what happened to him at Williamsport High School. His daughter, I complained about his daughter being bullied here before you guys at the last meeting, and by the next morning, the coach that was bullying Derek Dyer's daughter stopped doing it, was super nice to her, and has actually stayed after school to help Derek Dyer's daughter repeatedly. He had been refused entry to some sporting event at Williamsport High School that his daughter was participating in because he showed up after halftime. Derek Dyer runs a candy store at the mall, so he works retail. He can't be everywhere at once. He's got a life like most of us, and he was unfairly denied access to that sporting event. So he wanted to thank Dr. Sobine. After I relayed that message to the board and to Dr. Sobine, that situation was resolved, and he actually personally called to apologize for the situation happening in the first place. Thank you, Dr. Sobine. That is, takes a big man to call and apologize, especially the head of the school system, to call just one parent. It's very nice. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the transitioning of children. You're supposed to teach reading, writing, arithmetic. You're not supposed to transition children. In 1984, I wanted nothing more than to be a GoBot. But my parents did not transition me by getting experimental surgery to have robot arms. In 1987, I wanted to transition into Don Johnson and have that magnificent hair and a Ferrari and an alligator on a sailboat and all the other stuff you saw on Miami Vice. Parents didn't do that. At no point in time did I become suicidal. And the problem is that the teachers union and school systems around the country are telling the parents that their children are going to commit suicide if they don't get experimental surgery to transition and hormone therapy. It's not real science, it's junk science. WCPS shouldn't participate in it, and they shouldn't take my money and put it towards something I don't believe in. Now, sitting next to me is a gigantic bunny rabbit. According to WCPS policy, we should install a litter box for him. We should call him by his preferred name, which he is transitioning into a bunny rabbit and also a little 12-year-old crybaby girl. He wants his name changed legally by Dr. David Sobine to Sheriff Baby Girl Brian Albert. So apparently you guys are changing people's names on paperwork. The changing of names is a function reserved for the circuit court, and it is not a power that is vested in the superintendent or any bureaucrat. So you guys need to knock it off. That is something that the courts decide. And I've been before a lot of circuit court judges, and Dr. David Sobine, you are not a circuit court judge. Stop transitioning children. Stop talking about it. Stop suggesting it. Stop allowing anyone in WCPS to even bring the subject up and try and foist it on children who are impressionable. All right? They see an adult telling them some crazy stuff. They tend to believe the adult telling them some crazy stuff. It's unacceptable, and you certainly shouldn't do it with my money. But to be honest here, this is just a dude dressed up like a bunny rabbit. He's just a civil rights litigator from North Carolina. He is not a bunny rabbit, okay? We got to stop participating in this man's delusions. He's just a dude in a bunny suit, okay? Don't call him special names. Go by what's on his birth certificate. Don't give him a special bathroom. Don't treat him differently. He's just a normal person dressed up like a bunny, and he's got some mental problems, clearly. So long story short, he will never be, no matter how much surgery he has, he will never be a bunny rabbit. So stop pushing that stuff on the kids. It's stupid. Don't do it. I think we should be done with that subject at WCPS. I don't think the board wants anyone doing it. The last thing I have to talk about is in regards to Christina Parkman's son. Now, I made a comment on Facebook regarding the fact that he was locked up in the basement of that school in-school suspension when he was an autistic kid, and obviously disruptive, I guess. But then they tried to deny that it was in-school suspension, even though she has pictures of, you know, the door being labeled in-school suspension, like on paper. So anyway, I made a comment on Facebook, and I've been threatening you guys and warning you guys since June about censorship on the internet and about how it's unlawful and about how there's so much case law out there. There is no lawyer worth working at OPD that would think you can go around deleting people's comments based on their viewpoint. So I'm going to read my comment into the record because it was deleted by WCPS's own Aaron Anderson. So I'm going to read the comment into the record. This is horrible. The language in it is so filthy, vile. WCPS needs to stop discriminating against disabled students, students of color, or against any sexual orientation. WCPS policies are a chink in the armor of our school system and its inclusivity. These school system employees, like Dr. Gladhill, who discriminate against kids for being half black and autistic, is not legal. Can you please tell me why that comment shouldn't be disseminated to the rest of the people in Washington County that look at the Facebook page? Because what you do is you automatically hit it so only people on my friends list can see it. I'm effectively blocked from talking on Facebook. You violated my First Amendment civil rights. I've sent multiple emails, cease and desist notices. We like 10 million people watched Levi Trumbull argue with Linda Murray about stop deleting Facebook comments. You guys are still doing it. I have your risk pool information. I'm announcing a $3 million lawsuit, $1.5 million in punitive damages against Aaron Anderson, and I'm seeking $1.5 million in compensatory damages from WCPS. So anyway, I've warned you enough. You've got to respect free speech, and you're not allowed to delete comments. So anyway, thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Do I have anybody else that would like to speak this evening? Nope.
They got rid of fact checkers on Facebook.
Could you go ahead and state your name?
Yes, Torin Mot.
Tori?
Torin, T-O-R-I-N.
Torin Mot. Okay, Torin.
Good evening, Superintendent Sovine, student member.
Could you
and other
speak into the
distinguished-
microphone?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, is that better?
That's perfect.
Okay. Good evening, Superintendent Sovine, student member, and other distinguished members of the board. I first want to preface that my following statement is not intended to slander any individual nor disregard the dedication and valuable insight the entirety of the Board of Education provides. I'm very appreciative of the work in which each of you put forth. I speak here tonight in hopes to shine light on, bring attention to, and take a clear stance on the establishment of inclusivity within our schools. As an individual who has been immersed and a member of Washington County Public Schools District since the very beginning of my school career, I speak with knowledge and anecdotal perspective. Washington County as a whole has made great strides in fostering a more inclusive and safe atmosphere for its community members. Washington County Public Schools has done the same. However, this does not discredit the fact that so much more work must be done. The precedent of including all students, no matter their race, background, gender identity, sexual orientation, social status, housing status, etc., must be made clear. I have continuous dedication and determination in improving my community for the betterment of all, whether that be in my school community where I continue to work in educating individuals on basic bias and poor comprehension of the act of being derogatory, my city community where I serve as the Hagerstown Youth Council co-chair, my countywide community where I sit on the Board of Student Leaders as a high school at-large member for Washington County's Association of Student Councils, or even my state community where I am a member of Maryland's Association of Student Councils as a state certified workshop presenter. In my own experience, I've been called slurs, repeatedly made to feel uncomfortable, violated, and been verbally attacked based on my existence of being part of minority groups that others are not. This dates not just in high school, not just in middle school, but even in elementary school. By no means should there be progression towards the normalization of this behavior, yet somehow, even at one of, if not the most inclusive school in all of WCPS, Barbara Ingram School for the Arts, I find myself struggling to go against the current of my peers to confront the usage of racial slurs. Board members or administrators of schools saying that all are welcome is simply not enough. Whether the curriculum reflects this, posters distributed from WCPS symbolizing basic efforts, or even further training on how staff members can do their diligence in providing a stronger sense of belonging. I need WCPS to push forth stronger efforts to provide a welcoming environment to every single student and staff member who walks through each and every one of their doors. To be clear, this is not a matter of who you voted for, your beliefs, your religion, your registered political party, nor your thoughts on relevant controversy. This statement is by no means shoving agendas or propaganda down our children's throats, but rather a matter of human decency and the acknowledgement of right from wrong. All students, including myself, should feel just as comfortable as a heterosexual Caucasian male. I bring this to attention not just to harp on my own set of experiences, but rather to clarify for individuals who turn a blind eye towards blatant discrimination, and especially to those who have the nerve to get up in front of a group of people and use slurs, derogatory terminology, and many other aggressions that impact the atmosphere and sense of well-being within all aspects of this community. I genuinely cannot comprehend that individuals can advocate for the equitable opportunity and inclusion of a person who is part of a minority, yet in that same sentence, weaponize, degrade, demonize, and discriminate against those of another. You simply cannot advocate for equity and inclusion of one student while weaponizing, discriminating, and manipulating the simple existence of another. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak tonight?
Good evening.
You want to state your name, please?
Emily Agresto.
Emily, go ahead.
Good evening, Board of Education and Superintendent Sovine. I'm here to discuss the quality and nutritional value of Washington County Public Schools lunches and how it impacts its students. My statement's intention is no way to degrade the hard work and effort of our food and nutritional service employees. I know in my high school, we appreciate and respect our food service employees because they are only working with the resources they are provided. If you allocated the appropriate amount of funding for lunches, students would be able to receive higher quality lunches, sustaining better academic performance. So my question to the board is, have you recently eaten a meal made in a Washington County Public Schools lunch? Most likely not, or maybe. But the word made is the wrong terminology in describing the way in which our food is prepared. It's heated up. The word made in a WCPS lunch, the meals come frozen. They are heated up and served to our students. According to an anonymous group of students I interviewed, they describe the cafeteria food as soggy, cold, flavorless, spoiled, even slimy. But yet my favorite still comes to, and slightly better than dog food. And this issue doesn't just affect Washington County students. It affects millions of students nationwide. However, I speak in hopes to advocate for change and bring awareness to the matter. I feel that WCPS should hold stronger values and prioritize nutritional values. While the intent behind school lunches is really optimistic, I mean, it's aimed at providing nutritious meals and support our students' education and growth. The reality of the school lunch initiatives often falls short between these ideals. These frozen meals are often packed with preservatives, excessive sugars, and unhealthy fats. For example, this is what a typical lunch looks like for student A interviewed. Chicken nuggets with whole grain goldfish that come with a grape juice. And for student B interviewed, it's mozzarella sticks with marinara sauce and chocolate milk. Now, in this instance, we can understand that these two students are not eating a healthy lunch. Now, this doesn't mean that WCPS does not provide salads and fruits, but as many of you know, a majority of students are not eating those. And honestly, I'll raise my hand and say, I don't eat the fruit served in my school cafeteria because they're from a can and full of sweeteners and sugars. The consequences of these poor nutritional choices are very evident. We are witnessing rising rates of childhood obesity, diabetes, and other diet-related issues. These health problems are not just statistics. They affect our children's energy levels and their ability to learn, their overall quality of life, and their overall quality of life. When I see my friends who are student athletes not eat a thing at lunch simply because they cannot stomach the food served in our school cafeterias, and then they proceed to participate in these high energy level and high energy burning physical activities, it truly it disturbs me in my soul, because they are not performing to their best of their ability, and I understand that. These lunches are not adequate enough for the students and what they need. Thank you so much. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else that would like to speak this evening? All right, we'll go ahead and move to board member comments. Board members, is there anything that you'd like to say?
What school do you go to?
I go to Boonesboro High School. I'm a junior.
Do any of the students pack their lunch?
So at the table that I sit at, none of my students do pack their lunches. They all buy from the lunch line.
I'd just like to say, Ms. Parkman is not here, but I will just say this. Thank you for coming tonight and bringing this to attention. It sounded like there was some good results and outcomes to the move for your son to Clear Spring, so I'm glad to hear that. Anybody else? Thank you. We'll move on. Under old business, consent agenda.
Washington County Government Procurement.
Yes, sir. And how are you tonight?
I'm good. Vice President Gasper, members of the board.
Thank you.
Dr. Sovine, tonight we have our first old business issue. We brought to the board in December a bid for diesel fuel. For us, it's just diesel. It also includes gasoline. There was an error in the rounding that the county had in their new procurement software. So these pricing is rounded out to 4 decimal points. Their system rounded to 2. So there was a slight increase in that price we brought to you for the diesel fuel. I think in total it was 0.0025 of a cent, and it estimated 350,000 gallons of diesel fuel. It's only about an $875 change in price in total if in fact we buy 350,000 gallons of diesel fuel.
Vice President Gasford, I move to approve the updated pricing for this bid at the corrected pricing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd just like to ask some questions. Mr. Bakewell, how much diesel fuel do we usually use, average?
Approximately 350,000 is what we estimate on a yearly basis.
Okay.
50,000 gallons, excuse me.
And what does that
350,000.
usually cost us?
Don't have I mean, it would vary greatly from one year to the next based
Right.
on the price of diesel fuel, right? Because this is just the price we're bidding is basically the amount to deliver, to transport. So there's a little bit on top of what it's the Opus price is a price that is provided kind of like, it's provided actually through Opus, but it fluctuates weekly based on whatever the rack price is at the terminal, and this price that we're bidding is on top of that price. So it would vary greatly from one year to the next.
Is it mainly for our buses?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
So, am I reading that right? This is a cooperative agreement with the county government, so is the price based on the expected consumption between us and the county government?
And the city, yeah.
And the city.
It's all, we all three kind of combine our usages for, in our case, diesel, they use diesel as well, and then also some gasoline. And the county bids that out, just like we lead the bid for energy and for natural gas. So we try and get some economies of scale in getting our, big amount, a larger amount of usage, and we go out to bid for that.
So we do that. Are there, and this is kind of off topic, this is something that I've been trying to figure out how it works for a while now, but are there other aspects of our budget where we can potentially combine certain costs so that we can maybe save the county money somewhere and then the county saves us money somewhere in the city and so forth? Are there more opportunities to expand upon this?
I mean, I do talk to the county from time to time, and we do have, a good, Brandy is the new purchasing manager there. I don't know what her official title is, but and Rick Curry before her. So we do talk from time to time about things. There are some things that just, we're on different schedules, would take maybe a little bit more figuring out to get on there. I don't know of anything right off the top of my head, but there could be some opportunities out there.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? I see no questions. We'll go ahead and call for the vote. On the consent agenda, all in favor? Okay, that's 6-0 with the student conferring. Mr. Bechtel, you're going to stick around here a second and speak on the second consent agenda item.
The consent agenda, yeah. So I have
the HVAC.
one additional, right, the
Yeah, go
HVAC
ahead.
replacement at Pleasant Valley Elementary School.
This is under new business, so go ahead.
Yeah. Staff is available if you have any questions on that purchase.
I have a question.
Oh,
You want to read it?
Vice President Gessford, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented by staff.
All right. Do I have any questions? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right.
No.
Any discussion? Now go ahead, Mrs. Murray.
Thank you. So, Mr. Bechtel, we're replacing the HVAC system at Pleasant Valley. And could you tell us how old it is? Approximately.
1991, and yeah, I saw that in the narrative, 1991 with the building renovation, sorry.
A while.
Yes.
And could you tell us what we are paying for it?
So the low bid was $1,524,000.
Right, and this is state and local capital
CIP.
improvement, okay.
Correct, yes.
All right, so that's where the money's coming from. Okay. I just like it when we're transparent with the public and they know, what we're spending and why we're spending it. And so, thank you.
Sure.
Any other discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that's a 6-0 with student conferring. Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thank
Scott.
you.
Appreciate it. All right, next item on the agenda is the construction documents for the new Downsville Pike Elementary School. Presenting tonight is Matt Burton, Supervisor of Construction, Tyler Nally, Project Manager, Michael Blake with Mosley Architects, and Jen Loen with Mosley Architects. Welcome, and I'm glad to see you all here because it means our school is moving forward, and that new school is moving forward, and I appreciate you all being here, so. You can go ahead.
Good evening, Vice President Gessford, members of the board, and Dr. Savine. We're pleased to return this evening with Mr. Blake and Ms. Lyon from Mosley Architects to give you an update on Downsville Pike Elementary School. I would also like to introduce Tyler Nally, who will be the project manager for WCPS on this project. Tyler's next to me here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We'd like to thank the Mosley team for their continued hard work and dedication to this project. Before the presentation, I would like to emphasize that while we are very pleased with the current cost estimate for this project, bids could come in higher, and the construction industry remains very volatile. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Blake and Ms. Lyon to give you a presentation.
Very good. Superintendent Sovine and members of the board, thanks for having us back again. I understand there are a few new members here tonight. So I know we sent out a packet a week or so ago. I hope you had an opportunity to look through it for those who aren't familiar, but we're going to give you some highlights tonight of where we stand on the project. A lot of it hasn't changed much, just more refinements of the design as we move towards bidding the project out for construction. So this is our site plan. We've shared this before. Really hasn't changed since the last time we prepared or presented to you. But just to give everybody a reminder and high level, so in the center there is the new building, new elementary school. We are proposing a new entrance across from Sterling Road that will be primarily used for bus entrance. There'll be some service use of that as well, but it's primarily for bus entrance. And then we will have a parent drop-off loop that is combined with the existing visitor drop-off loop for this building. So we're going to be using the existing entrance off of Downsville Pike and looping into a new parking lot and drop-off area in front of the new school. So as we've shared before, the school has kind of a relationship with this existing building. The main entrance faces this building, and you'll see later on that it picks up on some of the architectural elements. But we have an opportunity to create a real campus here and I think provide a lot of shared use of the infrastructure and create a kind of a safe and secure environment for the new school. Also shown on this site plan, you'll see some large play areas. There's a large play field kind of in between the new school and the existing CES building. We've got some hard surface and soft surface play areas for some of the older students, and then right up against the building adjacent to our pre-K and kindergarten classrooms are dedicated play areas for those students.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. Just to give everyone a brief overview of some of the activities that we worked on during the construction documents phase of our project. We held a key meeting with WCPS department staff and stakeholders to review the interior design concept and aesthetic design intent for the new building, which included color and material selections for the finishes. During this meeting, we discussed wayfinding opportunities throughout the building, including use of accent colors throughout the school to identify change in grade level as well as floor pattern designs to help in student travel across the building. Additionally, during the CD phase, we reviewed ongoing several iterations of project development with the facilities team to ensure that systems and components specified align with the design and construction standards and current operating and maintenance procedures and equipment. We held bi-weekly meetings throughout this phase to discuss projects, progress, and overall schedule and design details. To give a snapshot of our typical classroom layouts, on the left we have a kindergarten classroom which includes adequate area for all of the movable furniture, seating, built-in cubbies for the students along the corridor, learning boards such as marker boards, tack boards, and then connection to the adjacent collaboration space with plenty of interior glazing, side lights at the doors to promote visibility between the two spaces. On the right, we have just an example of one of the intermediate classroom layouts. Again, ample space for student desks. Student lockers are in the corridor, teacher desk, wardrobe, again, learning boards, marker boards, tack boards, and and connection to the adjacent collaboration space with even more glazing at that wall for the upper grade level students. Our first floor plan is very similar to what you've seen last time. As a refresher, we have a main circulation spine, kind of a main street running north-south down the building. On the bottom left is our main administration area, so main office, health suite, which is flanked by the two main entry points for the building with the red arrows. So you come into that main lobby and you can either go towards the right, which is the kindergarten and pre-kindergarten classroom wing, which is a one-story building wing, or you can go up towards Page North, down the main street where on the left you see the double height spaces such as the gymnasium, cafeteria, stage, and music classroom on the left, and then on the right in green is the IRC, the Instructional Resource Center, and learning studio, art classroom, and then the north wing at the top of the plan is the first and second grade classroom wing, which is a two-story wing. On the second floor, that classroom wing houses the third and fourth grade classrooms, and then down the coming south, planned south to the bottom of the page is again that main street where the interior circulation of the open stair in the center connects you back down to the first floor. Our fifth grade classrooms are along that central corridor in the center, and then we have itinerant rooms and support spaces throughout the plan. We have a simple roof plan which combines sloped and flat roof volumes of varying materials, all very consistent with K-12 facilities and very familiar to some of the buildings that you have in your portfolio.
Okay. As we do in each phase, we always go back to some of the early stages of our planning. And on the left-hand side of this table, you'll see a sort of a high-level summary of the program elements in the building. And then at each, and we went through an exercise early in the process to establish the desired square footages that are going to meet the operational and functional requirements of certain spaces. But we do a cross-check at each phase just to make sure that we're not growing the building larger than really what it needs to be, and also keeping conscious of economy and cost of adding additional square footage. So we always do this cross-check, and we know that some spaces are going to be by virtue of the way things are arranged in terms of adjacencies. Some spaces are going to be a little bit larger, but a little bit less than the targeted program. But we always try to stay within reasonable percentages so that the overall net and gross square footage meet our targets. And we have been able to maintain that throughout this phase. Just a quick touch on the exterior. These drawings have been shared before. The material palette hasn't changed. We are drawing inspiration from this existing building in terms of use of brick and other stone-like elements. We are using materials that are compatible with other K-12 schools in terms of durable finishes. And we are, you are able to see some of the sloping roofs, which are really kind of tied to the classroom or educational portion versus the flat roofs, which are a part of the public spaces. So there's a way to kind of distinguish public and private just by virtue of its roof forms. These are some exterior elevations that we've been sharing along the design process. And the upper left there is a view of the bus entrance. So you can see the bus is kind of in the foreground left where students will be dropped off, and then they have a dedicated entrance that connects to the administration portion of the building. On the upper right is the parent drop-off loop. It's got its own entrance, but they both end up at the administration, so there's a common nexus point at those two entry locations. Lower left is an outdoor classroom area. This is directly connected to the learning studio and the Instructional Resource Center, and also corridor leading back to the art room. So this is an opportunity to have functions that are that can occur both inside and outside, connected to this outside space. It is protected by the classroom wing, so it's an opportunity to be highly used throughout the year in a very functional and protected environment. And then in the lower right hand is just a sort of a larger view of the main entrance, standing, say, in front of this building. So yeah, all those, like I said, we have shared before. In summary, just to walk you through where we are currently with our cost estimating. On the left-hand side there was our target budget, $42,800,000. We have worked tirelessly with our engineering team throughout this last phase to make sure that we are staying on track to meet those targets. We have engaged an independent cost estimator to cross-check some of our work along the way. And on the right-hand table, upper right-hand table, is just an accounting of the various divisions within their cost estimate. So we have our trade bids for the building, trade bids for the site work. We always factor in overhead profit based on industry standards. There's a bonding and insurance component to any bidding contract. And then we still keep a contingency and escalation line item in there because we're still a little bit ways away from our bidding period, so some things can change between now and then, so we want to have that contingency and escalation factored in. So overall, our total construction cost estimate, including some alternates, and I think we've talked about this before, we always like to include a list of alternates that gives us a little bit more flexibility on bid day. These are alternates that are in addition to the base contract. So we've in this slide here, we've added both our base contract and our alternates together, and we're still tracking below our current target budget. So all those bode well, but as Matt said, bidding climate is still has some volatility to it. We want to be able to monitor that between now and bid day. In terms of our schedule, we're still on track for our schedule. We've already submitted some of our site permit approvals. It's working through its way through the process. We'll be submitting building permits here shortly, and also our final review package to the state for their sign-off. We're targeting bidding in late or early summer, and then if everything goes as planned, we'll start construction and with the intent of wrapping up construction in late spring of 2027, which allows ample time to get the building prepped and furniture installed and teachers ready to start for the new school year.
Thank you, board members. Do we have a motion?
Can I actually ask a question?
No, motion first.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. I move to approve the...
Speak up.
Sorry. I move to approve the construction documents prepared by Mosley Architects for the new Downsville Pike Elementary School.
Second.
I got a second. Thank you. Any discussion?
Sorry, that's me now. Okay. Do we need to be worried about the glass breaking? So it says full height glass, I guess, where the intermediate collab is.
Oh, at the classrooms?
Yeah.
Back to that. Well, it's possible that glass could break if something is thrown at it, like a chair. Certainly, that's not the hope, but I mean, I think the visibility between the two spaces is an important factor that we want to maintain between the two spaces to help with teachers.
Is this a regular glass, or is this maybe a more protective glass, more sturdier than most?
It's tempered interior. Yeah, it's tempered quarter inch, yeah.
Okay.
There are code requirements in terms of proximity to doorways or entryways or height above floor, so all of that will meet code requirements for.
Okay.
So if it did break, it wouldn't shatter that.
It wouldn't shatter.
No, it would spider.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, this doesn't have anything to do with approval or not, but I'm just curious why they built a two-level school. Why did they go with a two-level instead of a single level?
Just it's space, mostly.
All right.
Just how much the topography of the land and just how much space we need for the site. When in new construction, we need quite a bit of space for stormwater management. So if we went stuck with one level the whole way, we would really run out of space very quickly.
Is there an elevator in here?
Yes.
Yes.
You think about those things as making the cost higher, and anyway.
Well, we're also going with the 5-round school. I believe that is the case. Is that right, Jeff? Are we going with a 5-round school? 4? We're going with 4?
It's
Okay.
4 round right now.
Right now, okay.
And, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm assuming that we have 6 pre-K to make smaller classrooms because then it condenses down to 4 for each class after, or each grade after.
We're incorporating pre-K 3 into this school, and we're not anticipating that those classrooms will fill at the same rate as kindergarten and on up.
Okay.
I have a question concerning the entrance at Sterling. Do we know if that's going to be a roundabout, or is there going to be a traffic light put there, or has that not been decided yet?
It will be a traffic light.
It'll be a traffic light?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Good. All right, we'll go ahead and take a vote. Board members, all in favor? Opposed? All right, 6-0 with the student conferring. Thank you very much for coming tonight and bringing us some positive
you all very
news on
much.
this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the approval of the 2025-2026 high school program of studies. Dr. Heath Wilcox, Executive Director of the Secondary Education. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice President Gesford, Dr. Sovine, and board members. On behalf of Dr. Willow, Associate Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, I am requesting board approval of the 2025-2026 high school program of studies.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, Vice President Gesford, I move to approve the 2025-2026 high school program of studies.
Do I have a second? Second. Mrs. Beachley, thank you very much. Any discussion? All right, I see there's no discussion. We'll vote on this. All in favor? 6-0, student conferring. Thank you. Thank you, sir. The, Mrs. Graham is here with legal counsel tonight for a few items, I believe. And we'll start with the Washington County Board of Education operating norms and communication processes.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice President Gesford, Dr. Savine, members of the board. The Board of Education conducted an annual review of its operating norms and communication processes during its January 7th, 2025 public work session. The board made minor changes to the documents.
Do I have a motion?
Vice President Gesford, I move to approve the Washington County Board of Education operating norms as discussed at the January 7th, 2025 work session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And any discussion? All in favor? 6-0, student conferring. Thank you.
Mr. Gesford, I move to approve the Washington County Board of Education. Did you need to go? I'm sorry, Mrs. Ram, were you going to speak? Okay, sorry. I move to approve the Washington County Board of Education communication processes as discussed at the January 7th, 2025 work session.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussions? As I see no discussions, we'll go for call for the vote. All in favor? 6-0, student confer. Under first read.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy BEDD and Exhibit BEDDE at its public work sessions on August 8th and 29th, 2024, and September 20th, 2024, and recommended several changes to both, including that the exhibit be reclassified as an administrative regulation. The Board of Education approved a first reading of the policy and exhibit at its October 15th, 2024 public business meeting. In accordance with policy BG, a second reading of a policy must occur within 8 weeks of the first reading. A second reading of policy BEDD and exhibit BEDDE did not occur within this time period. The committee conducted another review of policy BEDD and exhibit BEDDE at its public work session on January 8th, 2025, and did not recommend any additional changes to the policy or exhibit. The committee is again recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy BEDD and exhibit BEDDE.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, Vice President Gessford, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy BEDD entitled Rules of Order for Meetings and exhibit BEDDE entitled Rules of Order for Meetings.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Burkett. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Does this have anything to do with changing the order of the meeting or times or anything like that?
No, that's a different policy.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? As I see there's no questions, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Vote is 6 and 6-1, student conferring. 6-0 with 1 student conferring. All right, continue with your first reads.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy DC at its public work session on September 20th, 2024 at staff's request. The committee concurred with staff's recommendation to rescind the policy because its content is covered by state law. The Board of Education approved a first reading of the policy at its October 15th, 2024 public business meeting. The committee conducted another review of policy DC at its public work session on January 8th, 2025, and did not recommend any additional changes. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading to rescind policy DC.
Have a motion?
I move to approve the first reading to rescind policy DC.
Do I have a second? Second. I'm sorry, who was that? Ms. Beeching? Thank you. Any discussions, questions? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? 6-0, student confer.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy DFAA at its public work sessions on September 20th and October 31st, 2024, and January 8th, 2025, at the request of finance staff, who is undertaking a review of Section D of the policy manual. The committee is recommending several updates to the policy, which include adding a definition section to assist the reader in understanding the different types of fund balances, and updating the policy to include all the Board of Education's fund balance categories and reserves. The committee is also recommending that the Board of Education, not the superintendent, promulgate administrative regulation. This will allow the board to determine fund balance uses. The committee is requesting the Board of Education to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy DFAA.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the first reading policy changes, proposed changes to policy DFAA entitled Fund Balance.
Do I have a second? Mrs. Beachley, thank you. Any questions? Ms. Murray?
This is Ram. So can you explain to me how this policy has changed, how it's been tweaked?
Yeah, so we added a definition section, the recommendation of finance staff to help the reader and the general public and any employees of the school system understand what different balances that are contained within our accounting and budget. And Mr. Prue will come up behind me if I'm saying anything wrong. So And then additionally, what we codified here is what we're already doing in practice. So we just tightened up the policy by ensuring that we're transparent in how we're handling matters.
Thank you.
And also clearing up that we have, you'll also notice, I should say, a change in the title because it's general and self-insurance fund balance because there's more than one.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? I just would like to say thank you because that fund balance is always so confusing, of where the money comes from. It's nice that it's defined out, not just for board members, but for the general public, because we get a lot of questions about where's that money come from, and you say fund balance, and they're like, well, does everything come out of the fund balance? So this really gives a nice definition of that, and it helps out. So thank you to the policy committee for helping differentiate that out. So I see no other questions. We'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, 6-0 with the student conferring. Ms. Ram, you got another one there.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy DJ at its public work session on October 31st, 2024 and January 8th, 2025. After the second reading and proposed changes to the policy failed at the October 15th, 2024 business meeting. Staff originally brought the policy to the committee because of a change in state law made during the most recent Maryland General Assembly, the 2024, not this current one. The committee is now recommending the amount at which the Board of Education approval is needed for the purchase of school buildings, improvements, supplies, and equipment remain at $50,000 and not be increased to $100,000. The committee is recommending striking language in the definition of a pre-qualified bidder that is more appropriate for the administrative regulation. Also, the committee recommends striking the paragraph on the requirements for the purchase of school materials because the paragraph is duplicative of the paragraphs on the purchase of school buildings, improvements, supplies, and equipment, and the paragraph on textbooks, supplementary readers, and instructional resources. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy DJ.
Move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy DJ entitled Purchasing Standards.
Second.
I got a second. Any questions or discussions?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that the biggest change made here just kind of creates efficiencies for our purchasing department to be able to push recommendations forward. So that's really, I guess, in summary, the biggest change.
Any other board members? As I see no more discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Student concurs. All right. We'll move on to the Washington County Board of Education's 2025 legislative program and approval of the legislative representatives, legislative response team members for the 2025 Maryland legislative session.
Excuse me, Mr. Gesser, there was one more policy
Oh,
before
I'm
that.
sorry. I
Nine.
must have
Number 9.
I checked that off, but go ahead.
Thank you. This one's very important to the legal department.
Okay.
The Policy Committee reviewed policy KDBA at its public work session on September 20th, 2024. The committee agreed with staff's recommendations to strike a large portion of the policy because its operational nature and should be placed in an accompanied administrative regulation. Language was added to the policy stating the Board of Education authorizes staff to charge a reasonable fee for the appearance of an individual in court and/or for the reproduction of documents as required by the subpoena. The new administrative regulation will set forth a fee schedule. The Board of Education approved a first reading of the policy at its October 15th, 2024 public business meeting. A second reading of the policy did not occur. The committee conducted another review of policy KDBA at its public work session on January 8th, 2025, and did not recommend any additional changes. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy KDBA.
A motion?
I don't speak Latin.
You can just say subpoena.
Thank you. I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy KDBA entitled Procedures Governing the Response to a Subpoena.
Thank you. I have a second. Any discussion? As I see, there's no discussion or questions. We'll move to the vote. All in favor? 6-0, student concurs. Now, I knew you were staying here for some reason.
This is my last one for the evening.
This is the last one. It was a lot. So.
Yeah, it was.
All right, go ahead.
The Board of Education Policy BJ states that the board is to discuss its legislative program on an annual basis. The board is also to establish its legislative priorities for state and federal legislation and to establish a legislative response team under this policy. The Board of Education conducted public work sessions to discuss its core values, legislative priorities, and initiatives for the 2025 Maryland legislative session on November 5th, 2024, and on January 7th and 15th, 2025. The Board of Education will now formally adopt its legislative program as discussed at the work sessions, appoint the legislative representative, and appoint board members and staff to serve on the legislative response team.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Do I have a motion?
Vice President Gessford, I move to approve the Washington County Board of Education 2025 legislative program.
Thank you, Mr. Burkett. I got a second, Mrs. Beachley. Any discussions or question? As I see none, we'll move for the vote on the first motion. All in favor? Opposed? And 6-0. Motion 2.
Vice President Gessford, I move to approve the individual nominated to serve as the Washington County Board of Education's legislative representative for the 2025 Maryland legislative session.
Discussion? I see there's no discussion or question. We'll move to the vote. All in favor? 6-0. Third motion.
Vice President Gessford, I move to approve Dr. Zentmeyer, Mr. Gessford, Mr. Evans, Dr. Savine, Ms. Ram, and the legislative representative to serve on the legislative response team for the 2025 legislative session.
I get a second. Any questions, discussion? As I see none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor? And a 6-0 vote. Thank you. Motion carries. All right. We're going to move to the Maryland Associated Board of Education committee nominations. And let me get to that. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the self-nominations for MABE committee assignments as presented as presented in the public documents, and sending the board endorsement of those nominations to MABE.
And those nominations are under budget, Charles Burkett, legislative, Darrell Evans, and nominating Dr. April Zentmeyer. I had a second. Any discussion, question? I see none. We'll take the vote. All in favor? And we have a 6-0 vote. Motion carries. We have, hello.
Hello.
How are you? Dr. Jennifer Webster, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, Vice President Gessford, members of the board, Dr. Savine. I'm here to ask for your approval of membership for one of our board advisory committees.
Do I have a motion on the floor?
I move to approve the proposed candidates for membership on one of the Board of Education's advisory committees.
Do I have a second? I have a second. Discussion or question? As I see, there's no discussion or question. We'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? The motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Peru, advertising.
Good evening, Mr. Gessford, members of the board, Dr. Savine. The matter I have in front of you is an approval of advertising rights for the Smithsburg High School Booster Club, the Athletic Booster Club. In September of 2024, the Board of Education approved an MOU for advertising rights with the Smithsburg High School Athletic Booster Club. to identify entities and persons willing to donate funds toward programs supporting educational athletic programs at Smithsburg High School in exchange for being granted advertising rights on the school campus. Vendors have been identified for locations within the gym, and in your packet, you have the names of those entities and samples of the signage that will be posted inside the gym.
Vice President Guestford, I move to approve the assignment of advertising rates as requested by the Smithsburg High School Athletic Booster Club.
Usually, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burkett. Any questions or concerns? I see there's no question. We'll move to the vote. All in favor? Thank you. 6-0. Student conferred. All right, we got Dr. Heath Wilcox, Executive Director of Secondary Education, for a donation of $7,500 from the Nora Roberts Foundation.
Good evening, Vice President Guestford, Dr. Sovine, and board members. I'm requesting approval of a donation of $7,500 to Western Heights Middle School from the Nora Roberts Foundation to be used to support continued improvements to the auditorium and fine arts programming.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the gift of $7,500 from Nora Roberts Foundation to Western Heights Middle School.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Mrs. Murray, thank you. Any questions, concerns?
Regulations and how we have to use them outside of just to improve the auditorium?
No, it's just donated to the school for the fine arts department, and that's, the school's looking to replace some things in the auditorium, maybe some speakers, some microphones, and then they typically with the Nora Roberts money use it to buy additional things for fine arts programs, whether that's theater or the music programs or the art program, or dance at Western Heights as well.
Any other questions? I see no more. I'll call for the vote. All in favor for the donation? That's 6-0. Student confers. Thank you. All right, we're back to the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Guestford, members of the board. Recently, I had the honor of announcing our 5 finalists for our Educational Support Personnel of the Year Award. Our ESP staff are remarkable employees, and they play a critical role in school operations and in supporting our students. As you can see here, our finalists are Charles Bell, a custodian at E. Russell Hicks Middle School, Lacey Grove, an administrative assistant at North High, Ashley Harbaugh, a regional assistant kitchen manager at South High, Edwina Walker, one of our bus drivers in the Smithsburg area, and Jessica Walsh, a paraprofessional in one of our integrated pre-K classrooms at Ruth Ann Monroe Primary School. We look forward to celebrating our ESP staff and highlighting these 5 finalists at the ESP of the Year Award Banquet. It will be hosted at the Maryland Theater on Wednesday, February the 19th. We sent an announcement out today to the school community for more information to buy tickets, and we are proud to host this event in partnership with the Education Foundation of Washington County Public Schools. January is National School Board Recognition Month. I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to the members of the Board of Education. Their work shapes the policies and direction of our schools, ultimately contributing to the success and well-being of every student. While I've worked with some of you for just a short period of time, I've been impressed with your focus and your interest in wanting to learn as much as you can and about just understanding the school system as well as our students and our families that we serve. On behalf of Washington County Public Schools, thank you for your service, your passion, and your support of public education in our community. Finally, this evening, I would like to share a few calendar updates for the month of February. On Friday, February the 7th, all students will be dismissed 2 hours early. And on Monday, February the 17th, all schools and offices will be closed in observance of the President's Day holiday. Vice President Guestford, members of the board, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Superintendent. We'll move on to our next item of business is personnel action. Dr. Webster will join us again.
Good evening again, Vice President Guestford, members of the board, Dr. Savine. As discussed earlier during closed session, there are several staff changes for your review, and at this time I ask for your approval of this evening's personnel actions.
Oh, motion?
Vice President Guestford, I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, January 21st, 2025, as presented in closed session.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Burkett. We'll just move on from that. We'll take a vote. All in favor? And we have a 6-0 vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to board member committee reports. Let's start with finance.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
We have a meeting coming up at the end of this month.
Okay, sounds good. Human resources?
Human Resources met last Tuesday, and I was really impressed with the meeting because Terry Baker, the Executive Director of Human Resources, had her staff, Sandy Hammond, who is the coordinator of ESP, Lindsay Darr, coordinator for teacher personnel, Tim Haynes, coordinator of talent acquisition and development, Regina Keller, coordinator for A&S, and Kathleen Boyer, who is the coordinator for employee benefits. She had all of those people, since Ashley is new, she just had them go around the table, introduce themselves, and tell her what they do in their jobs. And it was very helpful. I thought it was a very good meeting, and it was a good way to start out as a new board member. So I thank Mrs. Baker very much for that.
Policy.
Yeah, we just met, sometime last week, I think it was. I don't remember what day it was, but we discussed pretty much everything we just voted on here. So we had a lot of catching up to do since we did not have our November meeting. So we did some catching up there, and now we should be back on track with that. The next meeting will be held on Wednesday, February 12th at 11 a.m.
Thank you. Curriculum instruction met that last week, and I will let Mrs. Zetmeyer, when she returns, to very enthusiastically tell us all about the programs. She really knows how to tell a lot better than me. So our next meeting for curriculum instruction will be on February the 5th. We will be meeting at Rockland Woods Elementary School at 10:30 a.m. And we are definitely looking forward to being there and meeting staff and having our meeting within a school. And finally, facilities. Facilities will be meeting next week on January 28th, and we have nothing to report since the holidays.
Mr. Guestford, would it be
Yes.
okay if I gave a student council
Go
report
right
as well?
ahead.
All right, so tomorrow on Wednesday, January 22nd, the Washington County Association of Student Councils will have their third General Assembly here at CES, where our theme for this GA is Inspiring Action. So if any of my fellow board members would like to pop out and check us out in action, you would be more than welcome to. On Saturday, this Saturday, January 25th, the Maryland Association of Student Councils will be having their Winter Leadership Conference down in Montgomery County, which I will also be attending. So be prepared for reports on that. And I also wanted to take a moment to thank Torin and Emily for coming out. I didn't know that they'd be coming out tonight, and it's always nice to see a familiar face. So thank you guys.
Thank you. And anytime you have a report, you just jump in, so, because sometimes we overlook you, and we don't mean to do that, so don't take it personally. I guess I'm going to finish up with board member comments. So, Mrs. Beachley, would you like to start out this evening if you have any comments?
No comments at this time.
Okay. Mrs. Murray?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank all the speakers that came out tonight. We always appreciate your opinions. Secondly, last Wednesday, I was able to visit South High, and I visited the Connections programs. And I want to thank two teachers, Terry Yunker and Dacia Cook, for welcoming me in, I can't talk tonight, I don't know what the problem is, welcoming me into their classrooms. I had a very nice visit, and Principal Rodney Gaiman was also there, and he gave me a very warm greeting. So I really appreciate it very much.
Mr. Evans?
Stay warm out there.
Mr. Burkett?
I attended the MABE new board member orientation last Tuesday. And then also last week was able to start visiting some of the schools. It's my goal to try to visit all of our schools here soon. But the first ones I went to were South Hagerstown High School and the Innovative Learning Center. And kudos to both of those schools for how they're running their programs. South High Principal Rodney Gaiman will be here on February the 4th to speak to the board. I was not going to be able to be here. I have a previous engagement, but just really, he has some really neat programs going over there. And just on a side note, to the young lady who talked about nutritional food service, I owned a restaurant in Hagerstown for 10 years, and happened to go into the reason I asked what school you went to is because I went into the cafeteria, into the kitchen there at South High, and they were opening bags of fresh broccoli. So that was exciting to see, because I do hear, I have foster kids that are still in school, and I hear about the chicken nuggets. They call them something else in the school system.
Chicken chunks.
Chicken chunks. But I agree. I think that, you know, maybe we could do better. With that, that's all I have.
Okay. No comment this evening. Do you have anything that you'd like to add?
I'd say ditto on Mr. Evans' comments. Stay warm out there.
They won't. All right. Future agenda items that we have coming up on February the 4th. The superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2025 budget. We will have a school highlight of South Hagerstown High School. Rodney Gaiman will be here. And board certified behavior analysis, the BCBA update. That'll all be on February the 4th. Superintendent, would you have any last words for the evening? Okay, as I see that we have no other words, no other business, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.